This is Carson Branstine. She's the number 194 player in the world, and despite a torturous litany of injuries that have held her back so far, she just qualified for the main draw at Wimbledon, and her easy power is a big reason why. The reason I call her power easy or effortless is because of points like this, which they don't look as flashy as winners, but the amount of velocity she's able to generate on this backhand with such a small swing is the reason that Lois Bassan is so rushed and misses the forehand. Now, the secret to this easy, effortless power is in the abdomen. So we're going to go to a specific backhand to hit here, and I'm going to show you how she's using her hips and how she's using her trunk to produce this power in such a small amount of time. And the key idea here is stretch. So if we look at the power position, her load position here, you can see in her abdomen, you can see in the skin on her abdomen that her trunk, her shoulder line, her chest, it is twisted back farther than her hips. And then you're going to see during the forward swing that that tension is going to unwind itself. So it's going to end up flinging the trunk forward. Now, there's a few things you need to understand about this stretch coiling action in order to implement it for yourself. The first thing I want you to notice is that the trunk is moving faster than the hips for pretty much the entire swing. So as we start here, that trunk is twisted farther back than the hips. You can see that in her stomach. You can see the tension. But watch what happens during the forward swing. The trunk is thrown forward faster than the hips to the point where we get here, and you'll notice that tension in the abdomen is gone now. So the trunk has already caught up to the hips, and by the end of the swing, will actually end up in front of the hips because it's rotating faster. So that's number one is, a lot of people get the idea of hip drive into their mind, and that's amazing, except it must be connected to the trunk through that tension in the abdomen. So watch the shoulder line gets thrown forward as the hips drive. Your shoulders must get thrown around by your hips. If your hips are going by themselves, then your swing is actually getting discombobulated and you're losing that tension corkscrew coil that she's recruiting through the abdomen here. Now, biomechanically, the hips, the pelvis, it actually moves faster than the trunk for about 25 milliseconds. But you're not going to be able to feel that. And the way you get this fabled hip shoulder separation, which lasts 25 milliseconds, is so quick you can't even hear it. The way you get that to happen is by learning to feel this tension. Again, look at that stretch. The reason that that little separation occurs is because of the tension she can feel in her abdomen. She can feel there's fascia, there's muscles through that part of the body that'll signal that tension and that power to you when you're getting this, when you're getting that little trunk corkscrew to happen properly. And so that's what I want you to feel. I want you to aim for that feeling of tension and power in your abdomen rather than thinking about the timing windows, because the timing windows are too small for you to actually feel. And then the last thing I want to talk about with her specifically is watch that off shoulder. See how her front shoulder is pulled across her body here? And then watch the front shoulder, boom, explosively pulls forward into the swing. So this is another thing that I see students get stuck with when they're thinking about the hips. That shoulder line, that upper part of the trunk really needs to yank itself out and participate in that explosive twist. What you want to feel is that coiled low tension position. Everything explodes forward. During this part of the swing, the more tension and corkscrew you feel in the abdomen, the better. And then the trunk is going, at this point, the trunk is already going faster than the hips. Faster, 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 faster than the hips, the entire motion. So the purpose of the hips is to speed up the trunk. And then, of course, the purpose of the trunk is to speed up the arm. We've talked about that part in other videos. That effortless power comes from the hips connecting to the trunk through that tension in the abdomen and then flinging the trunk through. And we can see the biomechanical soundness of her shots by the fact that she can rally with the best player in the world and deliver these powerful strikes in limited time. And it's not just the backhand. She can rip the serve too. She could rip the forehand too. Her mastery over the abdominal corkscrew everywhere around the court is the only reason she was able to compete with Aryna Sabalenka in that second set. Some of these points are even a little bit Federer-like, where she combines just that little bit of positive balance with that tight, quick abdominal corkscrew that produces such a quality shot as she gets this weak reply. And then again, it's the quick feet, quick recognition, positive balance combined with that tight, quick rotation. And speaking of Federer-like, we've been looking at Carson's backhand, but to tie this in a bow, I want to show you the same exact principle on Carlos Alcaraz's forehand. We see that abdomen is stretched in the back, that tension between the upper part of the thorax and the hips. That tension is what makes it so that as the hips drive, the trunk comes with it, and watch that tension in the abdomen, watch how it unwinds itself, so the trunk is going faster than the hips and gets slingshotted past the hips. Again, when I say slingshotted, you're going to probably not experience the peak velocity timing window because that's too small. You're going to experience this feeling as tension you can sense in the abdomen. That's how you're going to feel that slingshot effect. Very important not to over focus on your hips from a sensory perspective, because right away the trunk is going with the hips. Look, the thorax already rotating from the very initiation of the swing and rotating faster, 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 faster. So it's rotating faster than the hips for most of the swing. And so you want to perceive that sensation of that shoulder line, your chest, your trunk firing around. Now, the other thing I want you to notice with Alcaraz is look at the stretch here, and then that stretch unwinds. But if we switch to a different forehand, a forehand earlier in the session when he's not hitting quite as hard, or maybe it's a forehand that got on top of him a little, see how there's less stretch in the abdomen than on our other forehand? So this is one of the things I also want to talk about before we close this video is the amount of stretch you use can vary from shot to shot. You know, if you're blocking back a 120-mile-per-hour serve, probably you don't want to be corkscrewing your abdomen like a madman and trying to generate all this explosive power. On the other hand, if you have a floater, you can corkscrew a heck of a lot more. This is a tool in your toolbox of hitting the shot. Depending on the shot you're playing, you can wind up more or less. You can load more or less power into your trunk and hips and make that power control trade-off shot by shot as you see fit. And lastly, I want to give you a drill that we use with our clients all the time to help them feel this tension and this corkscrew, because it can be kind of difficult to feel if you've never felt it before. It's pretty simple. You get in a nice wide stance and you drive your knee to the elbow on the side of your body like this. And this is going to help you feel that tension, and you're going to be able to explode faster and harder and faster and harder as you start to feel that sensation in your abdomen where your body's signaling you that that stretch corkscrew reaction is happening.